Hey everyone, it's Gretchen Carlson. I'm here for the live signing today, carlsonbook.com. I sort of feel like I'm sitting back at the anchor desk. I did that for 25 years, and I hope to be doing that again in the future. But today, we are talking about Be Fierce, something that I'm incredibly proud of. This is my second book. I put this one together incredibly fast after my story at my last employer broke on July 6, 2016. Many of you know that I filed sexual harassment charges there. And, really every day since then has been a surreal experience for me. But what was the impetus for the book? A lot of people said you could have just gone home, and I have two kids at home, 12 and 14. I could have just spent my time doing other things. But here's what happened. Thousands of women started reaching out to me, and they started saying, "Me too." And that's the hashtag that's been trending over the last 48 hours, hashtag Me Too. So many women have experienced this, and of the thousands who reached out to me, I responded to every single one. I think they felt comfortable knowing that I had been through a similar experience, and they wanted to share their own stories with me. That was the impetus for this, because in many cases they said to me, "Gretchen, you have become the voice for us because we never had a voice on this issue." And in what happened with my case in having a resolution, they felt a sense of victory even though they had never had possibly a good outcome for themselves. So when I reached back to them and said, "You know what? I have a sense of duty now to have your voices heard for the first time. I'm thinking about writing this book. Would you allow me to tell your story?" And 98% of them said, "Yes, would you? Would you please tell my story?" And so that was the challenge I had before me, is how do I put together a book that gives a voice to these women's stories and also offers practical advice to women, millions of us who are in the workforce. Chapter 4 is a playbook for you. It's my 12-point plan that tells you exactly what to do if you happen to be facing sexual harassment in the workplace. Or even if it's not happening now, it's good to have it as a guidebook because it could happen at some point. I also have a chapter on parenting, because this is where I really believe this issue starts. We have to take the parent's pledge that I put in this book, Be Fierce, that talks about parenting our boys and girls in a similar fashion, with equality, and most importantly, how we're raising our sons, so that our sons respect their sisters, their moms, they see the parents together, or the single mom, or the partner, or whomever it is, respecting one another, and then that is what they learn to do when they become adults and they get into the workforce. It's essential that we are teaching our young people those lessons. It's also why I'm going to be going on a college campus tour for Be Fierce. I'm going to go to at least 6 colleges. Hopefully I'll come to an area near you, and I'm going to be giving that message to young people as inspiration as well. I also have a chapter on men. By the way, go to carlsonbook.com. That's where you can be right now, because you can get me to sign the books for you when I'm done telling you a little bit more about the book. There's a whole chapter here on men, because you know what happened when I was researching this book? I started hearing from so many men as well, saying, "Thank you for doing this." And my unscientific study, actually on the streets of New York City, where we are today in an office building here, is that more men have stopped me to say thank you for what you did than women. And usually when they want to shake my hand, they say, "Thank you for doing this for my daughters." And so I decided, wow, I want to celebrate these men, these amazing men who are already doing this good work of empowering women in the workforce, and who want to provide safe work environments for everyone. And by the way, that's the majority of men in this country. It's just these random jerks that we've got to get rid of. We got to do something about this. And this is the way to do it, to empower yourself, to be able to stand up and speak up in any aspect of your life where you feel you are being put down. It starts young. Our kids face bullying in elementary school. This is a book for them. It starts in college with sexual assault. 1 in 5 girls are going to face that. This is a book for them. It starts when you get into the workplace. Not only sexual harassment, but pay inequity. Learn how to stand up for yourself for that. It starts with not getting the promotion that you deserve. And of course, it ends with not getting a seat in the boardroom. So this book is really about standing up and speaking up in any aspect of your life where you feel you're not getting the fair shot. So I am going to also be taking questions today. So if you're already joining us at carlsonbook.com, submit your questions. I'm going to answer as many as I can. And when I'm signing your actual personal book for you, I think what's so great about these live signings, I love technology now in 2017, it's that I can sign books for you without actually coming to your hometown. I wish I could come to every state. I actually did that as Miss America many years ago. But for a book tour now, it's just not feasible. So these are great. This is a great opportunity for me to be able to connect with you today and to personally sign your book, even if I'm not coming to your particular city. So shall we get started with the signing? I've got these people out here, Eric and Lauren, who are wonderful people helping me today. So we're just going to be, going with the flow here, and they're kind of orchestrating what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm going to be signing on this page. And hopefully when you tell me how you want it made out, I can put your name on it. And I'm going to sign the page that says, Be Fierce. So should we take some questions? All right. So let's start with Jean, and this question comes from New York. Gretchen, would you say advice you share and encourage in your book would also be applicable to general, quite often daily, female harassment? I just was talking about this. And now as a 70-year-old, almost 70-year-old, age-related female harassment, not only on everyday situations, but also in the sad confines of one's immediate family. Yes. I mean, I'm so glad that I read that question when I was just saying that this book is not only applicable to victims of sexual harassment or to young women or women who may, in fact, eventually face that in the workplace. This is really a rallying cry about the time is now for women to stand up and speak up about any issue in which they feel that they're not being heard. When you move to New York City, I don't know if you know this about New York, but they say location, location, location. I never understood that till I lived here. But what I'm saying now about this book is timing, timing, timing. We live right now in such a divisive culture politically in our country. It's so black and white with no gray area in between. And I really feel like the time is now for women to really especially have a voice. And we saw that earlier on with the Women's March and with so many women now who have come forward after my story broke. So many more women have found the courage and the bravery to be able to come forward. So I really feel like the time is now. And what I like to put on a hashtag is for our kids, because that's what it's all about in the end. All right, so I signed this one to Jean then, right? No? Okay. So let me go on to another question. Mark, did you realize God would use you in such a large capacity when you came forward last year? Oh gosh, Mark, thank you for that question. No. I don't think that anyone in this kind of a position ever expects to be the face of this issue. But one thing that's been constant for me in my life is that if a challenge is in front of me, I usually go for it, and I never give up. And so when I found myself in this position, I decided that I really wanted to make a change and make a difference. And that's why I've taken on 4 full-time jobs in the last year. I'm not working in TV currently, but I was writing this book. I've been working on Capitol Hill to change the laws, to take away the secrecy aspect of this whole issue. I've been on a speaking tour, and I've started my Gift of Courage Fund, which financially supports women's and girls' organizations to empower them, and also empowering boys, which is essential. And one of the things I'm incredibly proud of that we're just announcing over the last few weeks, and it's going to kick off in Dallas-Fort Worth November 2nd through the 4th, is the Gretchen Carlson Leadership Initiative, which is going to be a 9-city tour eventually, 3 days of workshops for underprivileged women. One of the questions that I got when my story broke was, how do you help the single mom who's working 2 jobs, trying to raise her kids, and she's being sexually harassed at work? And that question really troubled me, because I didn't know if I had an answer for that. But now with the Gretchen Carlson Leadership Initiative, it's the start of a solution, because underserved women can come to these 3 days of workshops in 9 cities this coming year for free. My Gift of Courage Fund is going to pay for them to have the ability to learn about sexual harassment, how to get a lawyer, domestic violence, and how to have a voice civically and politically in life. Because what happens when you're a victim of domestic violence or sexual harassment, You don't have a voice in those issues. You feel silenced, but you also feel like you don't have a voice in life. And so I want to encourage those women to have the opportunity to get the help they need and also to know that their voice matters. So those are some of the full-time jobs I've been doing over the last year that's kept me really busy, and I wholeheartedly believe that in giving back, we become whole as people. So it's always been a really important part of my life. So what are we doing here? We're signing books today. Look at all these books that I have on the desk. I'm going to open up to the correct page and sign my name. And hopefully I'll be signing those for a lot of you as you want to continue to ask me questions throughout the next hour that we're going to be live with you. Oh, and there's my soda that I asked for. You know what? Yeah, everyone has to have a vice, okay? I'll just be honest with you. Mine happens to be, well, I won't do the brand, but mine happens to be soda. I guess I probably shouldn't even probably take a sip yet, but anyway. Let's go to another question. Robert, from Minnesota, my home state. I have a 16-year-old Minnesota daughter. Your advice to a single dad. Well, Robert, first and foremost, I hope that you will buy this book for your 16-year-old daughter. She's at the perfect age to really start reading some of these stories and learning the life lessons that will be central to her gaining the courage and the bravery to continue on with her life, and especially when she gets into the workplace. And I talk a lot about Minnesota. In fact, I say Minnesota in the first line of the book because Minnesota is incredibly still near and dear to my heart, because I was blessed to grow up with Midwestern sensibilities, what I like to call good values and treating people right. There's this Minnesota nice thing. It's actually true. And so I talk a lot about how that upbringing gave me the courage as a young child to accomplish things, but also as a foundation for the courage that it took to do what I did. In jumping off that cliff, you don't just suddenly one day develop courage. It's not like a light switch that you turn on overnight. This is something that you build throughout your whole life. So for your 16-year-old daughter or any other children out there, this will help them build the foundation that will carry them through to be fierce for the rest of their life. Thank you for the question. Here's another one. Who was your favorite teacher? Why? Oh my gosh, I had so many great ones. Mr. Nebedrick, 10th grade, he gave me a huge life lesson. So I was really, uptight about what kind of grades I was going to get in school. I call myself a reformed perfectionist now, which is a good thing. And he put, instead of a grade at the bottom of my paper one day, he put 2 words, carpe diem. And I had no idea what that was. This is before the internet. So he told me to go to the library. I went to the library, I searched it up, and I found out that it meant seize the day. So I went back to him and I said, and he was like, well, you should think about that. And I said, well, why did you write that at the bottom of my paper? And he said, well, because you shouldn't always be so concerned about a grade. You should really be concerned about seizing every day. And he ended up being in my wedding all those years later because he was the toughest teacher at my high school, and everyone was scared to death of him. But he taught me this life lesson that I think about. It's my life motto now, actually. I think about carpe diem every morning when I wake up. And I do seize every single day. I usually wear it on my wrist, actually, to remind me. Today I have on Be Fierce because it's the launch of my book, Be Fierce. But I hope that I can inspire all of you to seize every day and to take on that motto. And that came from one of my teachers. So thanks for the question. What is the most beautiful place you've ever been? Let's see. I think it might have to be Tahiti, actually. Gorgeous, gorgeous oceans there. I was there with my sister. She met her husband in Tahiti. What are the chances? Like better than a Harlequin romance. He was working on the boat that we were on, and now they have 3 kids. So that's a good romance story, but Tahiti was also a beautiful area if you ever get the chance to go there. So we're signing books today of Be Fierce, and this was really a labor of love for me because I realized that I had to do something about this whole issue of sexual harassment, and when I found out how pervasive it was, really an epidemic, I decided that I wanted to provide a guidebook and an inspirational book for people to know how to navigate the tough waters out there. And so that was really the impetus for me putting this together. And signing the books is an honor for me. If somebody wants to buy my book, I know that that's a commitment and a financial commitment. And that's why I'm honored to be able to put your name on it today if you join us here. carlsonbook.com. All right, I'm going to look for other questions. Let's see. How has your life post-Fox been? Less stressful? Do you sleep more now? Well, yes and no. Let's see. Not over the last few weeks have I had a lot of sleep. But I don't get up at that crazy hour of the morning anymore. For 8 years, I got up like at 3 in the morning. You never get used to that, really. And, you know, I've been incredibly busy. Like I said, I've been really doing all these other full-time jobs to try and make a difference. Let me tell you a little bit about what I'm doing on Capitol Hill, because this is actually really important. And I feel like this is a way in which we can bring Republicans and Democrats together in a really divisive culture politically. So here it is. When you sign an employment contract, you may have a clause called forced arbitration. You probably don't even know if you have it or not, but you should. And when we start new jobs, we don't expect to get into any kind of a dispute. I know I didn't. But guess what? If you have one of these clauses, you've given up your Seventh Amendment right to be able to go to an open jury to hear your claim. So instead, you're forced into something called arbitration, where the company picks the arbitrator, where only 20% of the time does the employee win, where you can't call the same amount of witnesses and get the same depositions, and there are no appeals. And here is the biggest problem of all. It's secret. So nobody ever knows that you filed a claim. And you're usually fired, and the perpetrator can usually stay in the job. And so we just continue the problem, except that we have a bunch of women who are no longer living their American dream because the blood, sweat, and tears they put into their career is suddenly over and nobody knows about it. So I have been working incredibly hard to get both parties to come together to present a bill to take away that secrecy element. Just baby steps. Just take away the secrecy. And I'm incredibly optimistic. I've been meeting with a lot of Republicans behind closed doors. Democrats are already on the side of this. And so what better way for Republicans and Democrats to come together in the political divide that we have right now for women? Wouldn't that be amazing? Because guess what? Women vote, and both parties need them. And I am incredibly optimistic that I'm gonna get this to happen. And I don't think it will happen unless we get both parties to come together to do it. So that's what I'm working really hard on Capitol Hill. I'll keep you posted. I have some meetings coming up in November. So hopefully we'll have some good news to share sometime soon. You would think, you know, that politicians actually would be more interested in this than ever before because of the Harvey Weinstein allegations and revelations coming out of Hollywood and the groundswell that we have been seeing now with more and more women feeling brave to come forward and men supporting them. You would think that politicians would want to get on board with this because I really believe that it's a tipping point right now, that this is a watershed moment for our society where we really are going to have change with regard to this issue now, and women are going to feel braver than ever before to make sure that their voices are heard. So, any politicians, if you're watching out there, give me a call. Don't you want to have your name on this bill? I think you do. So I'm signing my books today, Be Fierce. And I'd love to be able to put your name on these books as I'm signing them. So if you're already joining us, let me know what your name is. Are you guys going to tell me what names are so I can sign?
No, I'm not going to do any personalizations because those other ones you signed.
Oh, okay. All right. Great.
I'll be fair to everyone.
We'll be fair to everyone. All right. The gallery is telling me my instructions here. Soham, want to do 22 questions?
Who inspires you most?
Who inspires me most? Gosh. Well, because I dedicated my book to my 2 kids and to all the women who reached out to me, and because today's the launch day for Be Fierce, I'm going to say my children, who I hope will have a safer work environment when they get there, and to all the women who trusted me enough to tell their stories in this book.
Great. Who is the most unexpected person in your phone?
Uh-oh. I don't know. Well, okay, so here's something I'll tell you about. I like to stay friends with my old boyfriends. I do. I don't know, it's this Minnesota nice thing. So, and trust me, my husband knows all about it. So that probably would be unexpected.
Who makes you laugh the most?
Definitely my son, Christian, who's 12, because he just has this ability to bounce out of bed every morning with a smile on his face. And even in my darkest days after my story was breaking, he just is always in a good mood, and I just take one look at his cherub face and feel better about everything else.
Who would you want to play you in a movie?
Well, gosh, that's actually kind of realistic right now, because there are some documentaries, I think some movies around the story that happened to me. One person that some people have suggested, and I would really like this, because she also went to Stanford University, would be Reese Witherspoon. Is that too high to dream for that? She's a lot younger, so they'd have to give her some crow's feet if she was going to be playing me, but I would, I'd be honored if it was Reese. And she's also a huge advocate for women, so thank you for doing that, Reese.
What is your favorite movie?
Favorite movie is Shawshank Redemption. For all the young people out there, they probably don't remember that. But the reason being that on my first date with my husband, which was a blind date, we were talking about movies, and he gave me a choice of, let's see, what's your favorite movie between Shawshank Redemption, Pulp Fiction, and, what was the one with the box of chocolates? Forrest Gump. And we both said Shawshank Redemption, and we went on a second date. And I just actually saw this movie recently again on an airplane. It's still as good as the first time.
What is the last book you read?
Uh-oh. I hope my English teacher, Mr. Nebedrick, isn't watching. I haven't read a lot of books recently, to be really honest with you, because I've been working really hard on this book. But Brené Brown is somebody that I like to read for inspiration. So it's probably whatever her latest book was.
What's one thing that you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Diet Dr. Pepper. Oh, that's what I actually was drinking here. I know I'm not, whatever they tell you about not drinking diet soda. But I try to just have one a day, always in my refrigerator.
What is your favorite pastime?
My favorite pastime is going to the movie theater and eating popcorn. My second favorite pastime is going out to dinner and having a glass of wine. You see, there's a theme here, eating, which is something that is actually my favorite hobby in the entire world. Now I just have to learn how to be a better cook.
If you could have any car in the world, what is your dream car?
Also a good question, because actually my family business, which will almost be 100 years old in 2 years, is the car business. And so I'm going to have to say what my mom and dad are selling, which is a Chevrolet. I drive one. Yep. I drive a great SUV Traverse Chevrolet. Now, if I was going to say like a fancier dream car, I've been thinking a lot about a Tesla. Yeah. Oh, I got a high five over there from somebody. They look pretty nice, don't they? Yeah. And they're, the only problem would be like if you go on a long trip, can you find a place to plug it in? I guess that's the biggest problem. And then I'd really have to be technologically savvy to figure out how to find the place where I am supposed to plug it in. But the car what?
The car tells you.
The car tells you? Oh, it's that smart? Oh my gosh. My husband and I always have this debate because I always get the mom car. he is driving the sedan. I'm driving, the car that can fit the 7 kids. And we only have 2, but, their friends and the hockey equipment and their baseball equipment and the soccer equipment and the piano books and all that stuff. So I figure after all these years, maybe I'm going to get some sort of a sports car like that. We'll see.
What is your secret snack?
My secret snack? Other than popcorn? Well, it has been lately over the last couple of years, salted almonds. I don't know why I got onto this kick. Are you like a sweet person or a salty person? There's like a diet book out there that tells you which one you are. Are you a crunchy person or something or else? But anyway, I'm definitely a salt person, so that's what it's been lately.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh gosh, loaded question. Working, because I've always worked my whole life. I don't know, I've been asked to run for politics, so 10 years from now, would I maybe be doing that? Yeah, I might be doing that. Definitely am going to go back to TV. I'm in the process right now of working with an iconic Hollywood producer on a big project that I can't announce yet, but it's going to be out in the spring. And so I definitely will be working. I feel like I have a lot more to offer in television, but I've always been intrigued by politics if it just wasn't so nasty, right? But I think we were talking earlier about timing. It's so important to encourage other women to run right now, too. Did you know that only 20% of Congress is made up of women? So there has been a surge in females being interested over the last year. So once I can get my kids off to college, it might be something that I really think about.
So these last 10 questions, we're going to try to get done in 1 minute. It's a rapid fire situation.
Okay.
Okay, so starting now. What item would you love to get your hands on if it went up for an auction?
Oh my gosh, I gotta be fast?
Yeah.
Something for Princess Diana.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
Snapping gum.
What is your middle name?
Elizabeth. Wait a minute, that's not hard.
What was the last movie you saw in theaters?
Oh gosh. A Reese Witherspoon one. It was really cute. She was dating a really young guy.
What color is your toothbrush?
Purple.
Do you have any hidden talents?
No, I can't whistle. Does that count?
Are you a morning?
It's not a talent.
Are you a morning person or a night person?
I've turned into more of a night person recently.
What cause is dear to your heart?
Oh gosh, I have so many. Being fierce. Number one cause, inspiring people to be the best that they possibly can be in life. And volunteering. I mean, that's actually a huge cause. I serve on a bunch of nonprofit boards. I think it's really important to give back because that's how people get better, right?
What is the last gift you gave?
I just gave something to the woman who helped me put together this book. I gave her some earrings from Tiffany.
Where do you want to go that you have never been?
Okay, well, I want to take my kids to Israel. Does that count? I was there as a child. I definitely want to take them there because it changed my life when I went there as a kid. But where do I want to go? I want to go to the Seychelles Islands. Does anyone even know where they are? I'm not even sure. I've just seen pictures, and it looks amazing. But I think you need a long time and a bunch of, I don't know. You can't really get there very easily. So that may not be on my horizon. But that's where I'd like to go.
Coffee?
Definitely, no, here's how I take my coffee. I take cream and then I put a little coffee in it. It's the only way I can get it down. And by the way, caffeine doesn't affect me. I don't know, does that affect you guys too? I could drink it like at 10 p.m. at night and still go to bed. It's usually just like, for me, it's drinking. I know I'm supposed to be doing these rapid fire, right? Sorry.
Last question.
Okay. I just like to drink something warm in the morning, but preferably with a whole lot of cream.
And last question, what was the last gift you received?
The last gift I received was 36 long stem roses from my husband for our 20th anniversary already, which was October 4th. And we weren't even together on that day, which was kind of a bummer. But we celebrated early, and they came in this amazing vase, and It was a great gift. And I'm sure we look the same as we did on that day 20 years ago. He kind of does. I'm not sure I do.
That's your rapid fire.
That's my rapid fire?
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And we have a lot of questions come in, so if you
We
want
did?
to refresh the iPad,
Oh, how do I do that?
at the top, double circle.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Oh wait, I'm still not, would they be at the bottom or the top?
Yeah, they'd be at the bottom.
Okay. Do you still play the violin? I know, I should, but I don't. I kind of burned out when I was 17, but both my kids play piano, so I vicariously do my music stuff through them, and I'm still a huge supporter of the arts. And it really bugs me that that's the first thing that schools cut, because I learned so much discipline from my music. So I remain an advocate in that way. Oh, this is an interesting one. How do you feel about our current president and the past statements about sexual harassment affects the discussion of sexual harassment issues? I know, it's a tough one. It's really a tough one. So here's what I did when the Access Hollywood tape came out with President Trump. It was shortly after my story broke, and I really felt like it was a teachable moment for my kids, and I hope that millions of other parents out there felt the same way. And so I showed my kids that video. I really felt like it was crucial for them to see how not to treat a woman. And what I have said is that I really believe that human decency supersedes any political policy. So, I really feel like that's important about every way in which we live our life, not just about politics. But, we all have our own personal choices in voting, and that's what makes America great. I just, for me personally, feel like human decency was the most important thing, and that's not the best way to treat a woman. Okay. Could you tell me more about the Gift of Courage Fund? Yes, if you go to GretchenCarlson.com, you can find out more about Gift of Courage. And so what it is it's a fund that I financially support, and then I give grants to organizations and charities that already exist to empower women, girls, and boys. And so it's through financial gifts that they can continue to do their work. And then as an offshoot of that, one of my biggest gifts was to this Gretchen Carlson Leadership Initiative, which I was talking about earlier, which will help underserved women in 9 cities across the country, where they'll be able to come to these workshops for free. So if you want to know more information about that, you can just simply go to my website. Thank you for that question. Is there anything new that you would add to the book in light of the Harvey Weinstein controversy? Well, that I feel that this is a tipping point and a watershed moment in our society, and I'm just so proud. If I had anything to do with all of those women coming forward to start that chain of inspiration, then wow, it's really made what I did worth it. Because when you jump off a cliff like that, you have no idea what's below, if anything. Is there a net? Who knew? But now look at where we are. I mean, we're seeing that so many other women have felt courageous and brave, and I really believe and I'm optimistic that this will be a changing point for our culture. Here's what we really need to do, though, is that we have to stop the way in which we settle sexual harassment cases and make them go away, because both ways are secret. Settlements, that's the way like 95% of these cases resolve, but what's the problem with that? The women can never told you what happened to them. And so we don't really advance in society in fixing the problem. And then the other way I was describing earlier, which is these forced arbitration clauses in your employment contracts, secret. Women are silenced again. And so in 2017, probably a lot of people before my story broke or the Harvey Weinstein story broke, they were like, well, wow, we've come so far in society with sexual harassment and, racial discrimination. Well, the thing is, we really haven't. We're fooling ourselves into thinking we have because we're not hearing about these cases, but the reason we're not hearing about the cases is because they're all silenced. And so now that we have all these women coming forward, and a lot of them have broken their confidentiality agreements, that's real bravery, because they could come after you for that. But now that we're talking about it more openly, and my work on Capitol Hill to take away the secrecy, it really is a watershed moment where I can really see that being fierce is actually making a difference. All right, I already signed this one, so I'll keep going here. I read that there's an opening on The View. Interested. I don't think there's an opening anymore. I actually think my friend Meghan McCain is the most recent person that they put on The View. To be honest with you, I have no idea what I'm going to end up doing in TV. I've had so many inquiries and people reaching out to me. But right now, I just haven't had the time to focus on going back to television. I was busy writing the book and doing all of these other projects. And actually, I feel like the 15 months since my story broke, not being in TV has given me great perspective. And I'm really glad that I've had the ability to not only sample all the different news outlets out there and have the time to do that, and I have great respect for all of my television colleagues out there, but also it's given me great perspective about what do I really want to do? And the next time I take a job, I want it to be something that I really, really want to do and feel passionate about. So whether or not that's traditional TV or something that's more non-traditional, the business is changing so dramatically every single day. I'm just going to keep fielding the opportunities and make a decision when I'm done being fierce with the book and I'm done getting that bill passed, which are the top things on my list right now. So I'm signing the books today, carlsonbook.com, which is a great way for people to be able to interact and get their books signed without the fact that I might not be coming to your city to be able to do a typical kind of a book tour. And I had a lot of people reach out to me and say, are you coming to Topeka, Kansas? Or are you coming to the state of Missouri? And, right now those places weren't on the schedule, so this was a way for me to be able to reach out and have conversation with people, sort of like a virtual book signing, which is what I'm doing today and signing the copies of Be Fierce. All right, any other questions? Did you know in advance that Time magazine was considering you for their 100 most influential people list, or was that a surprise? It was definitely a surprise. They don't call you up before and say, we're kind of thinking about you. So that was an incredible honor. It was a great night where there were so many people from so many different parts of the world and in different professions who've done amazing things, like doctors and geneticists who've come up with cures for things that people are suffering from, and to be on that list and to be acknowledged for having bravery and courage was an immense honor and something I never ever thought would happen to me. All right, so I'm going to see if millennials, this is a great question. I'm a millennial, and I've seen many sexual harassment cases play out in the news since I became an adult. Were things swept under the rug more in the earlier days of your career? What was the turning point? Yeah, so unfortunately, the harassment allegations that you heard about that were happening with me most recently were not my only sexual harassment experiences. And I think this is true, unfortunately, for a lot of women, that you can become a victim, more than once. I think it just shows how prevalent it is within the workforce and workplace. So I had at least 3 other instances that happened to me earlier in my 20s. 2 of them were right when I was done being Miss America and I was trying to break in the TV business. And one was by a high-ranking television executive here in New York City, who helped me out all day long, making calls for me. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And then after dinner in the backseat of the car, he decided that actually he was thinking about doing something else. So before I knew it, he was on top of me, and that was just horrific experience because it's like your whole self-confidence drains out of you in an instant. And thinking that somebody was actually respecting you and wanting to meet with you because you're a smart person and you're talented just like goes out the window. And I know women out there, if you've gone through this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then a week later in LA, a high-ranking publicist, another cold call I made just to be tenacious and try and get into the business. And again, in a car, he actually assaulted me and shoved my head into his crotch. So, you know, these are experiences that at the time really demoralize young women and can really just completely stunt your growth about feeling confidence to move forward. And then when I went to my first job in Virginia, a cameraman also unfortunately decided to harass me when he was putting the microphone on me and talking about my body parts. And, you know, I don't know what it says about the fact that I was in a car in all three of these situations, but I actually envisioned myself in that situation, this was before cell phones, that maybe I would open the door and try and roll out of the car to get away because I was just absolutely so petrified. And I didn't do that. I made it back to the station and I was just shaking like this, and I would have said nothing, which is not the advice I would give for any young person watching right now. I hope that in reading this that you'll do what I didn't, which was immediately go and tell somebody. But I had a boss at the time who noticed something was wrong with me, and he, yes, a man, kept approaching me and saying, "I know something happened to you today. What is wrong?" And I finally mustered up the courage to be able to tell him. And I'm really, really, really glad that he took it upon himself to keep coming back to me and finding out if everything was okay. But, you know, here's the reality. I was 22 years old. I'd barely been in the job for a couple of months. You know, I feared that it'd be my fault if I came forward, that I'd be a troublemaker, I'd be called worse, that nobody would believe me. And I didn't want to make any waves. And this is what women still face in the workforce. And that's why, you know, in the book, I talk about how we have to all agree collectively to come together and decide that we are going to speak up. And for men who are bystanders in this issue, we need you to become our allies. Because if we change that dynamic 180 degrees, where we actually celebrate women who come forward and we encourage men to defend them, imagine the change that we would have in the corporate culture. Sexual harassment wouldn't be taboo anymore. It might actually be gone. Another fascinating fact that I found out from writing the book, and you probably won't be surprised at this, but when you talk to companies where predominantly women are working there, like in cosmetic companies and makeup companies and things like that, they don't really have sexual harassment. I mean, it's pretty fascinating when you think about it. I talked to some of the HR directors at some of these international makeup companies for the book, and they actually have really progressive policies in place, anonymous call lines for people to feel safe to report. But they said, you know, we get together every week and we look at the calls and see if there's anything that we really need to address right away. And they told me they don't see a lot of sexual harassment. But I guess that shouldn't come as a surprise because 70% of their workforce is women. So I guess we should be employing more women. That's my conclusion out of all that. And in higher positions, because what tends to happen is that you have so few women in high positions, and so if you have more men there and the harassment's going on at the top levels, then they turn into enablers because they also fear for their jobs. So if we upend this whole thing and put more women in those positions and then also encourage those men to not be bystanders anymore and to stand up for those women if they're seeing it, I think that would make incredible change. And I write about it extensively here. I also feel like companies should hire an ombudsman so that that you don't feel like the only place you can go is HR. I mean, I want to give a big shout out to all the people in HR who are doing fantastic work and helping women who do come forward to them and men. But I do think it would be helpful if there was this independent person who wasn't necessarily getting the paycheck from possibly the harasser. See, that's part of the problem. is where do your allegiances lie when you are getting paid by the person that might actually be the perpetrator? It's a conflict of interest. So I spell out in the book my progressive ideas and plans for companies, too, about how they can handle this more effectively. And, with the whole goal being that more women will feel brave enough to come forward and not fear that they're going to be retaliated against or lose their jobs. I mean, that's a huge part of this. I think it's the undersold part of the sexual harassment story, too, is the retaliation that women and men face when they do come forward. Because a lot of times in the media, we just want to report the salacious details, what were the sex things that they said to you? But the real story about sexual harassment is that it's really about power. Sometimes it's about sex, but it's really about power and what happens to you when you rebuff it. And the retaliation is so much more detrimental in my mind than the actual harassment. Because again, you have worked so hard as a woman to get to be where you are in your company. And now suddenly you're not being given the plum assignments anymore. And suddenly you're not being called to go on that road trip, or you're maybe fired. And that's really the undersold part of this story, is what happens after women complain. And here's the big question that I haven't answered yet, and maybe you can help me with this. Why do we as a society protect the harassers? I don't know the answer to that question yet. How are we raised or socialized that we, without failure, almost always protect the harasser? And what I found out in researching the book, Be Fierce, it's not just the top-level money earners that we protect who are harassers. I had countless women come forward and tell me that low-level male employees, if they were harassers, the company also protected them. So what is it about our culture? If you have the answer to that, let me know. Because that's been one of the most troubling questions for me that I haven't yet been able to figure out. I mean, I'm not a psychologist or a sociologist to be able to maybe understand why we do that. But I think if we could get to the bottom of that, that would be another way to really solve this issue. All right, so we have 10 minutes left. Thank you. I'm going to take another sip. This is like giving an hour-long speech. I love it. I'm going to see if I have any other questions. This is going to be a hard one. I've dealt with sexual abuse beginning at the age of 2. My mother allowed this, and I've confronted and found forgiveness for both the perpetrator and my mother. At 40, now working for the government, after reporting several incidents, the same people work in my building, one of which still closely to me. How can I change this? I'm so sorry for what you have gone through. I mean, certainly abuse is so much worse than harassment. So my heart goes out to you on that. I do, though, still feel that you can find empowerment advice in this book about being able to stand up and speak up for what was done to you. And it sounds like you have done that, but that people may still be close to you and you want to know how to change that. I believe that you can get inspiration and encouragement from me in this book, but abuse is also a crime. And so obviously you probably need to be reaching out to law enforcement on that issue. But I do provide you with the tools to be able to find the courage and dig deep inside of yourself to really feel better and stand up and speak up about any issue in your life, including sexual abuse, not just harassment, or any other thing that you're facing in your life. It starts young. It really does. Think about our kids in school, Bullying now starts in kindergarten, first grade. And so that's why I feel it's so important to get this message also to young kids. I mean, you're not going to want to have your 6 or 7-year-old reading this, because I do tell stories from women that, are graphic. But, I would say a good age to start reading this book would be 14. And parents could certainly read it and pass along parts of it to children younger than that aren't the graphic parts of it. But I think especially for our teens and our college age women and men, I write about college in the book. I think it's really important tips here because, again, young people, that's where it all starts. It's how they're raised and it's how they're socialized in college. And what happens there, what messages are we sending when 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted on college campuses? And then those women and men are going out into the workforce. I think it's crucial that we take a real hard look at what is going on the campus and how that affects the women and men that they become and the respect that they have for one another when they get into the workplace. And what are the parameters of that? You know, it's one thing to have relationships, but when you get into the workplace, how do you learn the right way to respect one another? It starts young. All right, let me see if I have any other questions here and refresh this. Becoming very technological. And continue to sign. What story from the book moved you the most? Oh gosh, you know, there were so many stories of pain and shame and agony that these women shared with me. I think it would be hard to pick out one because, unfortunately, most of these women never worked in their chosen career field ever again. So it's hard to say that one was worse or, you know, they were all bad. And at the same time, there were tons of them where the women did speak up and that they were successful. And I wanted to make sure in the book that I also showed optimism on this issue and not that every woman was sad and was fired. There are a lot of women in this book who had much more guts than I did earlier on, and they did speak up, and they had positive outcomes. So the book is really a combination of stories that are sad and women's careers and American dream taken away from them, but also stories about women's perseverance when they did speak up and they had a good result. And I wanted to make sure to show that, you know, to prove that it is important to have that voice and encourage more and more women to do that. All right. Okay. One other thing, you know, I just want to talk about my kids for a minute because I think, you know, that was the overarching reason that I decided that I needed to do something in my case. And I really worried about them. I really worried about whether kids would make fun of them or, you know, that they would feel embarrassed about it or that they would be uncomfortable, and they were paramount in my mind before I made this decision. And what I can tell you now, 15 months later, is that my kids have come out of this great, and I underestimated them because they now understand what it means to be brave and courageous. And specifically with my daughter, who was barraged with people at school on the first day when she went back last year, because that happened to be the same day that my resolution and my story was announced. And I was very anxious about that. And she came home from school and she said, "Mom, so many people were asking about what happened to you." And I thought, ugh. And she said, "But Mom, you know what? I was so proud to be able to tell them that you were my mom." And that's all that matters to me in the end, is that my daughter has learned what being brave and being courageous is and standing up for herself. And she did it a couple weeks later. She actually went up to a couple people that she hadn't had the guts to do that before, and she told them to stop being mean to her. And she said that she did that because she saw me do that in life. And that's what the whole message is about Be Fierce. My favorite phrase is that one woman can make a difference, but together we can rock the world. And that gift of courage is contagious. I've passed it on to my daughter and to my son, and look what's happening right now in the world. How many people in America this gift has been passed along to, and they're coming forward and they're having a voice. And they're being fierce. And it's like a chain of inspiration from one woman to the next, to the next, to the next, and now men too. Men are joining the fight because we need them. We need them to be in this with us together. So thank you. Thank you for anyone who is supporting Be Fierce. Thank you if you suddenly have the courage and the bravery to come forward. Thank you to former enablers who are now going to decide to be allies. Thank you to parents in the way in which you choose to raise your kids. Thank you to my parents for giving me an amazing foundation of perseverance and giving back and courage, which has made all the difference in my life to be able to do what I did. And thanks for being part of this live signing and Be Fierce. I hope you will join the movement. You can learn more about it at gretchencarlson.com//Be Fierce. Because together we can do this. So thanks so much for joining me today.